today. So I think I'll start off by there's a famous quote, the only thing constant in life is change. And that's in life, but it's also in football too. And speaking of that change, I want to thank Jahan and Riley for their time here. And we wish them the very best in their next chapter. So a lot of changes, honestly, since Adam and I arrived. And there'll be a lot more, in the future too. So the one thing that cannot change and won't is the way that we compete, and that's in every single part of what we've done. You've heard us talk through that from the time we got here, and so that's literally what we stand for in everything, to find those edges, find those margins in all sorts of ways. So all that said, John, ready to get started?
So why the decision to trade Jahan?
I think at the end we're always going to make the decisions, that are just rock solid and best for the team. And this was one of those examples where we had an opportunity to do that. And so that's why we did it.
How much did the performance of others, maybe at similar spots, contribute to the decision to then make that move?
I think everything's a factor when you're talking about evaluations of things. You've heard us say this. We thought this was a deep and strong group that had a lot of different guys and feature them in different ways. But certainly at the end, like I said, just really a matter of just, hey, here was an opportunity to go help the team, and thought that was the best way to go about it.
Hey, Dan. So obviously you and Adam are going through a lot of firsts together. Next week with the cut down day will be another one. How do you envision sort of the whatever the final conversations may be? How do you kind of see that going down? And ultimately, if there's a stalemate, what happens then? Yeah, no stalemates.
He gets that one to go. So what I love is being a part of the process with him. But that's Adam's call to go. But the good news is we're in all the meetings together and discuss the players together, and it's the hardest part of it, to whether you have to talk to somebody after, releasing them or trade or however those, conversations work. The important thing is we get a chance to, give feedback to the player and where it's at. But it's always the hardest part, next week and into that process. But it is part of it. And as the evaluations go, so much goes into it. It's not one game or one quarter. You try to use the whole body of work, to put the best group available.
And I know we're done talking about the QB1 conversation in terms of competition, but in terms of the rest of the room, is there any other competition going, whether it's for the 2 or keeping 3, or how do you kind of view that?
Yeah, we haven't, we won't say, in terms of how many, but what I can say, and what I have before, is this is a really remarkable quarterback room that can also give energy, to other parts of the team. So love the way that they have actually competed. Ben, that's one of the things that really stood out to me in their support of one another. So like a lot of spots on the roster, big decisions there, as it goes down to, how many and how to feature the guys. But, man, I couldn't be more impressed by the group.
Will QB1 play on Sunday?
He will not, Batman.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. First training camp here. Did it go the way you designed? Were you happy with everything that took place?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Chick. I was, and all the way from the beginning, I think some of the things that we had talked about in training camp of bringing, the rookie class in early, we got a chance to give them a ramp up. From the offense and defense and special teams portion, we started in the red zone, knowing that was going to be an important part of what we did. Tons of competitions, and we had an absolute blast as a team going on a couple 4-day trips, first up to New Jersey, practicing, being together, going to play the game. Same thing down in Miami. I thought it was hot. It was good to push one another in that space. So I knew we'd have good practices against the Jets and against Miami. Know Robert and a lot of their staff, and same thing with Mike and their staff. So those were all I'd hope they'd be, Chick, to see the guys compete. This week around the NFL is always a hard one. People are in weird spaces, and you want to make sure the best version of them is not over trying. And that's what I wanted to make sure as we're closing out the preseason, and there's still evaluations to look at. Man, best version of you, but you don't have to do something way different or out of what's normal for you, man. Like, what does your best look like, and how can we feature you guys in those spaces? But I am pleased as you're heading out of camp. Health of the team, that's always the number one, which there are some, that bangs and bruises that limited some time, but the good news is just about everybody's trajectory is back on track.
I know the roster is pretty fluid throughout the season anyway, but
yes,
for that receiving core, do you expect more changes there, or are you kind of picking from that pool of candidates as you set your first 53?
Yeah, right now, it's certainly coming from that group, and if Adam has a chance to compete and think about who it would be and where to add, no tea leaves. I'm not throwing any tea leaves down right now, Nikki. But I would say that, like, that's true at receiver, but, like, almost at any other spot, too. If the right moment is there for us to add for the team, like, we're just going to choose the team all the time when we can, just knowing that's where our focus is, that's where it's at. But we are pleased with the crew and where we're at. But you're right, it's not just the opening day, and you're exactly right. As roster moves happen and there's veterans and all sorts of things, you know, from the first week into week 2 and 3, I think that's where that fluid part comes in, you know, as you're going into week 2 and 3.
One player I don't think we've asked you about is Cleveland Farrell. Kind of what's going on with him, and is there any concern there going into the
No, it was good that he was able to get some practice in today, and then we expect him to be full into next week. He won't play on Sunday. He had a knee that just got swollen with sore, so we just kind of held him out as some precaution. If this was a game, he would have wanted to push to go for it, and we would have been in agreement that he would have been able to, but we wanted to make sure, man, hit all the markers. So he and Dante will both be back into things fully on next week. Both of them were asking for team reps today, and we gave them the double no.
One quick one, Deron Payne. I just don't want to. I want to make sure we ask about that.
Yep, no setbacks.
Okay.
Yep. He didn't finish today, but nothing that is setting him back. Held him out on our own.
What is he dealing with, Deron?
Nothing. I mean, just had something minor today. It was nothing that is lingering into tomorrow. He would play Sunday if he was playing, but he is not also.
How do you juggle, you know, when you're making roster cuts, veteran, maybe good for the room, but then at the same time, a younger guy who, you know, when you start out this build, like, we love his potential. How do you balance those two things when those hard decisions come down?
Yeah, that is absolutely where the art of this is, and there's like a, you know, razor thin line to stand on, because really the way we kind of look at it now, it's a 70-man roster. You know, that there's veterans that can go on to practice squad and get activations up. So we think bigger into that space, and so sometimes those veterans at a certain spot, if you needed depth, that would provide a third, let's call it, at a position versus a rookie, you know, that we think is going to keep making the strides. But it's been a big change, adding, you know, the veterans onto the practice squad where your scope can go a little bit bigger. It's always a hard conversation, you know, to have for either ball player, whether it's the veteran or the rookie. But at the end of it, just we'll always kind of decide on just, you know, the competitive nature, what we've seen, and make the decision from there.
Realistically, how many spots are up for grabs in this last game?
I would say there's still quite a few, not, you know, less than 10, but enough that, you know, in the backup spot, you know, from different people. There's definitely ones that we wanted to see, and we'll feature some of those players in those roles. I love some of the things that we're working on special teams, but we're still obviously competing to find different people into different spots. But I would say, yeah, there's, you know, definitely the back half is still very much front and center and getting another look. So it's a really cool week. I've always loved this week and this game. There's people that are absolutely going for it in the hardest of moments. I'm playing all the snaps on offense and special teams or defense, and yes. And so you really find out somebody's grittiness and willing to fight, and it is one of my favorite times. You get to see that type of competitive nature on display.
Hey, Coach. For the Sunday game, the final game, for guys that's still trying to make this team,
Yep.
how do you teach them to relax where they're not pressing too much? And then what are some of the things that you will be looking at Sunday for those guys that are trying to still make this team?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's some spaces. Maybe I've even seen that in practice this week, where even before we get to the game, and so I may pull a player aside and have that conversation. You look tight, you know, in the way that you're going about it. So the ability to control what you can, all right, man, is your effort and your performance. But willing it and being tight about it isn't going to help you be at your best. So it is a real thing and something that I want to acknowledge, as opposed to say, you know, like, oh, don't worry about it, or, you know, that's, you know, not a good technique. So from those of us who have, that makes you worry more. You know, it's kind of like, don't drop the ball or don't miss the kick. You know, it's like just the opposite. So I wanted to be front and center about it, about controlling the things they can, and also, like, the other acronym I use, or ETE, expect the expected. Like, it's normal to have these emotions right now. Like, this game that you love so much is at hand, and you want to keep playing and keep competing. So, like, it's normal and expected to have those kind of emotions that you want it this badly. However, over trying is a real thing, and I want to make sure the best version of them is their past performance where they were really letting it rip and in that flow. So I wanted to keep and encourage them to be into that state. But it's a real emotion. It's so damn important. They love the game so much. One of the hardest parts about releasing some of the players here is the conversations Adam and I have had with a number of these guys, and just disappointment. There's something here, they can feel it, and they wanted to express that to us. And so when you miss that op, you could just feel their tension leaving the room, not missing a moment or missing an opportunity. And sometimes somebody can get wrapped up in that, and that's my job to help them. It's normal, man. Like, you want it badly, of course you do. Like, you love it, but you're not going to be at your best that tight.
Coach, today is the last day of training camp. So is
Pool
there,
party. All right.
So,
Yes.
so is there, it doesn't sound like it, what I'm about to ask, but is there anything based on the current state of the team that is keeping you up at night right now? And if so, what are those things?
There's a lot, and I would say more of it is because of what's ahead, over the next 4 or 5 days. Huge decisions, for the team, for the franchise, for themselves. And so making sure we've been really thoughtful about that. But it is definitely the thing that keeps me up the most right now. The season's further away, and I just wanted to stay right here in the fight with everybody, finding those moments. What are we looking for in this game? And we've had plenty of those conversations to individual players to say, this is what we would like to see in this game Sunday night. And we're going to give you some calls and give you some plays to go do that. So that's what keeps me up, because the connectivity of the team is what I'd hoped for, the work ethic, the mindset, to really go battle. I felt that come alive. So making sure all the pieces to the puzzle can really fit seamlessly in that 70-man roster.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon.
A couple of special teams questions for you.
Love it.
It's been kind of largely thought that linebackers, end of roster linebackers, maybe had a little bit of an advantage from the special teams aspect, being cover guys, things like that. With the new kickoff rules, has that shifted at all to like the bigger safeties or DBs, or is there kind of still that arrangement there?
Yeah, I love the question, because I think where in the old rule there were some people that were the bigger guys, let's call it a big linebacker or a big defensive end, a big tight end that you could put on kickoff return, put them part of a good double team. Same thing on punt return to go do that. This feels different in terms of speed and space, and so I wouldn't be surprised if some teams, instead of more of the bigger linebacker or the bigger tight end, for special teams perhaps kept another safety, another big corner or nickel, another running back who has the real quickness to go, because that's what's been showing up to me, the guys with the real speed. And you've seen some of our guys who've made some of those big plays. They play those positions. And blocking somebody in space when they're running full speed and have a two-way go, that's a hard block. And that's why I think you may see a few more teams with a special teams player with the speed to go. It's not that all that common, like Jeremy has been that for us anyway, but I think that body type is one that is really going to thrive under the new kickoff and kickoff return rules.
And then with a new kicker coming in so late in the process, obviously you have like his previous stats from where he was before this, but is there any sense of like needing to maybe shift your practice plans to put more pressure on him to see what you have in him?
I think coming in, he's like the other guys is, hey, you got to compete to battle for it. What we didn't do today without any timing with the guys to, hey, get in and get going. So we want to get their timing with Tress and Tyler to work. He'll certainly kick in the game and then into next week as well. But it was actually a real solid, I thought, for Adam to make sure we got extra in. So now it's work with the guys today, work on Sunday night, and then the next week. So having Cade here early was really a big advantage.
Take 3 more.
Excellent one-handed catch.
That 100%. Well, Coach, you've talked a lot about since day one knowing the player, or knowing the person rather than the player, and that's really where you've started from. So with cut day looming, how do you go into that emotionally? Because I'm sure it's not like a Christmas morning for you.
No, it for sure is not. I guess, how would we want to be seen in that space? It's a hard conversation walking into that room because you're not going in with good news. But what you do also want to do is give the player feedback. If you come back here, these are some of the things that we would like to see moving forward. If the player's not coming back here, at least give them some things, if they get another op somewhere else, these are some things I think that could really help you to move forward. But I think any ball player would want to know, hey, man, just want to know where I stand and what you thought. And so oftentimes the conversations seem like they're going to be really hard, and then guys oftentimes show a lot of gratitude for the opportunity. So each of it's different, but you worry a lot about all of them, and you want to make sure every player we have a vision for. What would that look like if they were here, or even if they were somewhere else, give them some feedback for that.
All right, Dan, came from Salisbury for this question. When you
That's
were
a long ride up. Yes,
sir.
Somebody pay this guy's toll.
When you were ordering wings from Subrunners and watching football back at SU, did you ever envision that you'd be just over 2 weeks from coaching a season opener as head coach of Washington?
No, 100% not. I went to college hoping that when I was done, I would coach high school and teach elementary school. Then I got there and figured you could do this all the time in college, so that's a good gig, so I wanted to absolutely do that. But no, man, I've loved football my whole life, and I knew early on that I was such a good player, I'd probably get into coaching right after college. Okay, so that happened early. So even during my college years, I sat in other position meetings. I wanted just to learn and be around it, and it's absolutely changed my life, because every part of all the experience I've had have, come from football and all the people that's had such a huge impact on me. So no, I probably wasn't as thoughtful to say when I saw Gibbs and Parcells on the sideline that, I'd be, doing the same. But it's pretty damn cool, I can tell you that.
Hey, Dan. Of course, ending on a Jaden question. Over the last 4 weeks, you've gotten to know him a lot better and learn more about how he learns, how he takes things in stride. What have you kind of learned about the way that he takes things in stride? He talks to a lot of the vets. Kind of what have you learned about how he processes things and then how that's going to help him moving forward?
Yeah, I think the processing part I've probably been most impressed with. He has got rare mental quickness, processing mental quickness, the ability to make a quick decision, to put the ball in the right spot. The other thing that I admire about him, he's an excellent communicator, and he's easy to talk to, any part of the locker room, in and out, but like the communication piece, he's easy to carry a conversation with about a topic. We went through a lot of game situations today. I'm sure you guys saw it practice, so tried to stress him and everybody out as much because we had the officials here. I wanted to test our thresholds for times. Could we get this play done in 6 seconds? What about if it was 5? And so intentional. You could just see him coming out to go, and then he wasn't done competing. I want to take all the carded looks for New England and going through it. So it really doesn't matter what. I think at the end what we've all found is like he just loves to compete, and it could be on the scout team, end of the game, that moment, locker room. It is who he is. But I've learned a lot about him. He's got rare, like I said, blend of confidence and humility, but the processing and the mental quickness is really, really sharp. It cost you $2 for.
I just wanted to borrow a question from Nick.
It does. It still counts as yours. No. Yeah.
Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
Is he going to be over?
We can put him and Klee and Dante Payne all into the same space. I was able to run, had a groin issue a couple weeks back that we held him, but he's trending everything in the right spot as we're getting into this game. He won't play in the game, but he will be full on for next week. All right, you guys have an awesome time. I'll see you after Sunday night.